You know how sometimes you're looking for maybe a fresh perspective, a different way to think about what might be coming up? Well, today we're taking a deep dive into palmistry. You know that old practice of reading the lines and features on your hand?
Right. And our source material is actually a transcript from a YouTube video. It features a palm reading for someone who's 57 and, well, they recently lost their job.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's really interesting here, I think, is applying this, ancient system to something very modern, figuring out career changes later in life.
Right.
So our mission basically is to unpack what these lines and the sort of fleshy mounds on this person's hands supposedly tell us about their potential for success, luck, challenges, future possibilities, all that stuff.
We're hoping to maybe uncover some surprising details, maybe trigger a few aha moments for you listening.
Definitely. We're looking at things like the Mount of Jupiter, the Jupiter line, this thing called the Raja Loop, the money line.
Headline, Heartline, Sunline.
Yeah, and the reader also mentioned the Mercury line and a supporting lifeline. Lots to dig into.
It really sounds like a roadmap, almost, right there in the palm. Okay, so let's start with the Mount of Jupiter. Where is that again?
That's the fleshy bit right below your index finger. And in palmistry, it's linked to, well, growth, expansion in life, getting honor and respect.
Position, power.
Exactly, all those things. And what's interesting is the mention of a Jupiter line coming from this mount. Apparently not everyone has this.
Oh, okay, so it's a bit rare.
Seems so. Its presence is often seen as pretty significant.
And the reader said something about when it appears, like it might join the lifeline or headline around 18 or 19?
Yeah, that was the general time frame mentioned. But the key thing is, its influence isn't just when you're young. It's seen as something that can, play out across your whole life.
So what does a good one mean then?
Well, the reading suggested it can point to leadership potential early on, like being a prefect or getting awards, stuff like that.
Right.
And later in life, it could translate into, high positions, public recognition, getting to the top of the pyramid, as the source put it.
So like a long-term potential for being in charge and respected. Interesting.
Yeah, it suggests that kind of sustained capacity. Now, what about this Raja loop? That sounds intriguing.
It does. Okay, so this is found between the index finger, the Jupiter finger, and the middle finger, the Saturn finger. And the palm reader really stressed that this loop is less common than loops you might find between other fingers.
Okay. And traditionally, I think I've heard something about this.
Yeah, traditionally it was linked to having ancestors near royalty or something like that. Bit fanciful, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a bit. But what did this palm reader say?
They gave it a more, let's say, practical interpretation. They saw it as a blend of Jupiter's qualities and Saturn's qualities.
Okay. So Jupiter is the administration, politics, honor.
Right. And Saturn is more about, what, money, possessions.
Exactly. Money, possessions, wealth, but also wisdom, responsibility, practical management, you could say.
So having that loop means you've got a mix of both, the leadership vision and the practical smarts.
That's the idea. The combination suggests maybe a greater likelihood of holding a high position for a long time because you've got that balanced understanding, leadership and resource management.
Makes sense. You need both to kind of stay at the top.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does this relate to the money line and the job loss situation at 57?
Right. Let's connect it. So the palm reader looked at the money line, and they pointed out markers for age 35 around where it crosses the headline and age 53 near the heart line. The person's current age, 57, is beyond those points.
Okay. And there was something specific around age 57 on that line.
Yes. The reader described seeing an island-like form. Now, usually an island on a line might suggest, problems or a blockage.
Like a disruption in the flow. That sounds a bit worrying given the job loss.
It could seem that way. However, the reader pointed something else out. A V-like thing, almost like a trident shape, pointing up towards the Saturn finger.
A trident. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Apparently, yes. They interpreted this as accumulated energy, like potential building up. So even with that island suggesting a bump, this view shape suggests things are likely to resolve and get back on track.
So like a reserve of positive energy to overcome the setback. That must have been, well, reassuring to hear.
I'd imagine so. It's a more nuanced view than just island equals bad. It gives hope.
Okay. What about the Sunline? That's sometimes called the line of fame or luck.
Exactly. Fame, luck, career clarity. It covers a few bases. And the reader observed that before age 53, the quality of this person's Sunline wasn't, let's say, amazing.
So maybe some doubts or uncertainty before then?
Potentially, yeah. Periods of self-doubt. But, and this is important, the reader stressed it doesn't necessarily mean a lack of success.
Right, because success in palmistry isn't just one line, is it? It's how everything works together.
Precisely. It's the whole picture. And what's really noticeable here is that the sunline improves after age 53. It gets deeper, clearer.
And what does that signify?
The reader linked that to gaining greater clarity in life, a stronger sense of purpose. And that, in turn, suggests a higher likelihood of success. And, interestingly, staying productive even past typical retirement age.
Like finding your groove later on. Shining brighter, maybe.
That's a good way to put it, finding your stride.
Okay, let's shift to the headline. The line about mental strength, how we think.
Yep, that's the one. And in this reading, it was described as perfect.
Perfect. What does that mean in palmistry terms?
Well, simple, deep, clear, long, and strong. Basically all the good qualities you'd want in a headline. Sounds like a real asset.
Definitely. So strong mental resilience.
Exactly. While a super long headline isn't always better on its own, in this case, its overall quality points to someone who can handle significant life troubles. They can think clearly under pressure.
And how does that connect sort of indirectly to the job situation?
Well, the reader noted there weren't any big breaks or disruptions on the headline around the age 57 mark. The thinking is a major upheaval or intense mental stress might show up on this line. So its clarity is seen as an encouraging sign. It suggests the person has the mental toolkit to navigate this transition and land on their feet.
Got it. So the lack of a negative sign is actually a positive indicator.
In a way, yes. Now let's look at the Heartline. Emotions, relationships.
Right, and the reader mentioned a preference for a specific type, a shorter one ending under Saturn.
That's right, under the Mount of Saturn, the base of the middle finger.
And what kind of personality traits go with that?
Generally, realism, being grounded emotionally, also valuing money, being good at managing it, accumulating it, traits you often see in successful business folks, apparently.
Practical, grounded.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Were there other features on the Heartline? Branches?
Yeah, the reader mentioned minor branches, seeing them as maybe fleeting distractions or temptations. Longer branches might have more impact.
Okay.
But what really stood out were some rare upward lines seen on this person's Heartline.
Upward lines, what do they mean? That sounds positive.
Very positive, generally. They're taken to mean emotional upliftment coming from relationships. So getting support, positive influence from others that boosts your well-being.
Oh, that's lovely. Like your connections are literally lifting your heart.
It's a nice image, isn't it? Symbolizing positive bonds and emotional strength from others.
Definitely. Okay, what about the Mercury line? Skills, communication.
Yep. Linked to mastering skills, intelligence, calculation, communication effectiveness, all that good stuff.
And the reading said, a single deep line means one skill mastered, multiple lines means multiple skills.
That was the gist, yes. It points to someone intelligent, a good problem solver, potentially a good communicator, valuable assets for sure.
Was there anything else about communication? Something about the finger?
Ah, yes. The reader made a kind of tentative observation about the length of the Mercury finger, of the little finger.
Tentative how?
Well, they suggested a relatively shorter Mercury finger might indicate finding it a bit harder to communicate really openly with, say, close family and friends.
Right.
Whereas communication with strangers or less familiar people might flow more easily. But they stressed it was just a thought, hard to judge precisely from an image, you know?
Sure, highlights the limits of doing it remotely. Okay, nearly there. The reading also mentioned the left hand, a supporting lifeline, and the money line origin.
That's right. Just quick points on those. The supporting lifeline is seen as a kind of inner resilience booster, helps you through tough times, gives you that fighting spirit.
Like a backup generator for your life force.
Yeah, something like that. And the money line on the left hand, starting from the Mount of the Moon, that's also considered significant.
Okay, and what does that suggest?
Often points to potential success far from home, or benefits coming through women, mother, sister, wife, daughter, female friends, maybe even people abroad generally.
Interesting.
And also potential strengths in the service industry or trading. It broadens the possibilities for financial success.
Wow. Okay, so if we pull all these pieces together,
Yeah.
despite the recent job loss, this reading sounds actually pretty optimistic for this 57-year-old person, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah. You've got the Jupiter line, the Raja loop, suggesting leadership.
The Sunline improving, pointing to more clarity ahead.
A strong headline for resilience. Positive signs on the Heartline from relationships.
And even the money line, despite that dip, Seems like it has potential for recovery with that shape.
Exactly. So palmistry, as we've kind of explored here, offers this unique lens, this framework for looking at potential paths and challenges based on interpreting all these intricate features.
It really does. So for you listening, as you think about these, well, ancient interpretations, what aspects of your own lines, maybe literal lines on your hand, maybe just your life's path, might give you clues about your own future? It definitely makes you think about the signals, doesn't it? The ones we see and the ones we don't that might be guiding us. What other, I don't know, maps or systems do you use to understand your own journey and your potential? Something to mull over.